a huge storm in Charleston. Apparently, they already closed school for tomorrow. It's supposed to be
Wow.
like super high winds and 15 inches of rain. So we'll see how that goes. But it was beautiful yesterday and the day before, and now today it's gotten super cool down. Okay, Heather is on it and she is sending the password. So we'll go ahead and get started to be respectful of everybody's time, and then we'll
So
let.
let me make sure I understand that, Dana. Y'all closed schools for rain?
Yes, apparently for flooding. People
Oh,
they can't drop. Well, actually, you know why they said tomorrow it's closed? Because when the winds are above a certain miles per hour, they close the bridges. They won't let you go over the big bridge. And
okay.
I guess they're supposed to be that windy tomorrow. So we'll see. We will see. Well, I appreciate you guys so much being on. I know most all of you know Linda and Tony. We've had them on last year. And actually, Linda and I are going to selfishly use this as a podcast episode too. So some of you all will rehear it, because Tony, I shared this with him. When we had Tony on to talk about last year's market, it was our second most listened to episode of the whole entire year. So it was a popular one, which was really great. And also, I feel like, even me, like, we're hearing so many different things about the market this year, and feel like NAR is saying one thing and agents are feeling a different thing, and then you've got other people saying another thing. So I just thought it would be good to kind of get on and, one, talk a little bit about that, and then two, Tony, you said this is your 49th year in real estate, and Linda, we know you're 50, so I couldn't remember how many years business.
I think it's my 39th year in real estate. I can't remember. I was a baby when it
So
started.
you were 11. So Linda was 11. So with that many years of experience in markets up and down, Tony, I laughed because he said they just need to do what they did 49 years ago, the first year that I got in the business.
Yep.
And really that's true. So let's just kind of start with that. Linda, we'll start with you. What's just your kind of pace and take on the market this year? And then we'll go to Tony.
Yeah. Well, they always say in election year that, they're going to do something to try to stimulate it. They don't want to look bad. Whoever's in office would do that. But as Jimmy and I were talking yesterday, I think, even that if they do that, we still have a shortage supply, right? So it's still going to cause issues. But, and I, like Tony, started in a market that what we would call a down market or a buyer's market. And I think the problem is we get hung up on what market it is instead of what are the activities that you need to do. And I was just writing something earlier about, are you motivated by fear, or are you motivated because you are happy with what the opportunity is, right? And so everybody's different when it comes to that. But I think even, Jim and I ran numbers on like $300,000 house. If it's between 3% and 6%, even 6% or so, you're talking about a big amount of money. So people that have those kind of interest rates, those are not necessarily going to be your target, but there are people who have to move and don't have a clue what the interest rates were or what they are. And those are the people that I think that you're going to have to go after.
Yep. I just put in the chat, when you said that, it reminded me, I had this saved on my desktop. At the end of the year, we had John White, our financial advisor, who's amazing, from Northwestern Mutual, come on, and he shared with us this PDF called A Guide to Elections, and it's pretty helpful. So if anybody wants that, it's in there. But he did say one thing. He said that even though election years are always kind of wonky, the year after election year, no matter who wins, is always a great year, because people are like, well, that's who we have for the next 4 years. So now at least we can go ahead and, move on with our lives or make a purchase or whatever. So he said, no matter what happens in election year, just know that the year after, consistently, no matter if Republican, Democrat, whoever wins, always proves to be a great year, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Okay.
Tony?
Yeah, well, I would ask this question. How many people on this call, can they just raise their hands and let you know? How many people on this call think next year is going to be a fantastic year?
Wait, this year, 2024?
No, yeah, 2024. How many people think this year is going to be a great year?
Anybody who decides.
Yeah, give me a thumbs up.
Karen,
Okay.
yes. Yep.
How many of you think it's going to be a challenging year? Thumbs up. So you just made a decision on what 2024 is going to be like.
Yeah.
If you think it's going to be a great year, it's going to be a great year. If you think it's going to have its challenges, then you're going to have its challenges. I've talked to a lot of people in the last couple of months, and I've really come to the conclusion that we spend too much time thinking about the market, and we need to be spending more time taking action in the market.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's interesting that we know exactly what we need to do. It's whether, when you look at the different markets, the market 3 years ago or 4 years ago, how important was skill?
Not very.
Not very.
It wasn't that important. How important is it today?
Very.
Today, it's the number one key probably to survival. Probably it's the number two key to survival. So I think when you look at the market and what it's going to be what you're going to do as lead indicators instead of lag indicators. And I think that's one of our issues that I'm coming to the conclusion is we write goals based on what? How much GCI? How many closings? So we're building a business on lag indicators rather than what?
Yeah, lead.
Lead indicators. So what's the number one lead indicator in real estate? What's going to tell us what happens with our business? It's based on how many what?
Listings.
Leads.
Listings. And how do you get a
Contacts.
listing, Linda? Yeah, go on a listing appointment.
Appointments.
So basically, you want to have a great year, set lots of appointments. And so I think the key is, where do you want to go with the business? I want to have 50 closings. Then in order to do that, how many will be buyers? How many will be sellers? Then looking at those two, how many listing appointments do I need to go on to get the listings I need to sell the listings I need to close? Same thing with buyers. How many buyer appointments do I need to set to get the number of buyer contracts I want as part of my closing goal? So I just think when you look at building your plan for the year, I think it's got to be based on how many appointments. And Linda's right, from the fact that some people are not ready to sell. So basically, when you're on the phone or communicating with your database, what are you eliminating? What should be your number one goal to eliminate?
Non-motivated. People that can't sell right now or don't want to sell right now.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
So it's how fast do we get rid of the people we don't want to find the people we want? Find the people we do want. And it's interesting. One of our market centers had, what's the biggest expired day of the year? January 1st. So they went on the phones, and they got on the phones that day. Not everybody participated, which was something that surprised them, because they thought they set it up that everybody would be there. But the people that were on the phone set 3 appointments on average. So if you had 10 people on the phones, they set 30 appointments in one day. So what do you think they're going to do as a market center, or as a team, I should say? They're not a market center. As a team, what do you think they have encouraged everybody on the team, and because they're independent contractors, highly encouraged everybody on the team, they're going to do what every month?
They're going to call expireds.
They're going to get on the phones and make calls all day long, one day a month. if you just set 30 appointments in one day and you do that 12 months, that's 360 appointments.
Yep.
If a person averages 3, they would set 36 appointments in just one day. So,
And if
and then I talked to another guy and I said, where are you getting your leads? And I watched some guys do some prospecting on that day, and they were calling expireds, and they said they went back 6 months. So I called one of the top agents I know, and I said, how far did you go back for your calling day? And he said, we went back 2 years.
Wow.
And then I remember I went back in my notes, and during the last crunch, most of you know Jeff Quinton. Jeff Quinton went back 5 years on expireds. So then I took that idea, and I'm a partner in a market center in Chicago, and I got on a call with him on, I think, last Thursday. And one guy said he went back and found all the expireds for the last 2 years. He didn't set any appointments. In the first hour, he found 3 leads to nurture that will do something in the next 90 days.
So Tony, are you saying at one point in the last 5 years they expired and they never relisted again?
Well, they would have sold.
Yeah. So they didn't.
So you just find out. It's basically,
Right.
You're just calling and saying you're on the market. I noticed you were on the market 2 years ago. Are you still interested in selling your home? We sold it already. Congratulations. Goodbye.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Well,
Linda,
what do you think the majority of the people that were expireds, what happened to them in the last 2 years?
Probably sold. Well, in the last few years, that you could still have some that didn't sell.
Yep.
I was gonna say, I bet they didn't, because I remember seeing that graph of the pent up sellers from the last 2. Andrew is spot on. He said ignored.
Yeah.
And there's so many pent up sellers over the last 2 years that didn't end up selling.
Mhm.
Yep. First of all, the realtor that had their listing, did they follow up with them at all?
No, they felt
No.
too bad that they didn't get it sold.
They didn't get it sold, so they were embarrassed. So they're getting on the phones and finding out a lot of people didn't sell. And what's happened over the last 2 years with people's feelings about the current interest rates.
They feel like they're high, but it's basically the prices that are making the interest rates higher. The interest rates aren't bad. It's the interest rates with the prices of homes.
Right. So what they're finding is people are getting a little bit more accustomed to the interest rates.
Yep.
And the interest rates are probably not going to change much. I've seen anywhere from they're not going to be below 7 to they're not going to be below 6.
Yeah.
So take a shot, they're probably not going to be below 6. But do the interest rates really that important if you find somebody that wants to sell or needs to sell?
Mm-mm.
Nope. Nope.
So now it becomes the quality of your presentation to them that this is what 6% interest rate gets you. And here's the thing. If pent up desire still holds, and I've read anywhere from prices could come down to 1 to 3%. I've also heard that prices are not going to come down at all, and they're going to go up. So if somebody gets a 6% interest rate and they wait and prices go up 3 or 4%, are they better off buying a house and saving the 3% than paying a little bit more interest rate? And then part of the interest rate, if you're in the 38% tax bracket, how much of your interest rate can you write off? 38%. oh, you get to write off the taxes too at 38%. And if you really sit down and have a business conversation with them, and Linda and Jimmy talk about that all the time on their investing stuff, those are just business conversations with people. And as realtors, we don't want to have business conversations. We want to have sale conversations. And people are looking for a business conversation about interest rates and pricing and all that stuff. They want to talk to somebody that can explain to them what's happening and giving them direction for them to make a good, solid decision.
Well, it's the definition of leadership, teaching people how to think so they get what it is that they want. And
Right.
if you're the person that's changing the way they look at this, you're going to be the smartest realtor they've come across, because in the presentations is going to be the defining moment. They're going to tell whether you're confident, you have courage in the market, whether you understand the market, you know what mortgage availability of buying down, everything. If you're smart and you're the local economist, which, by the way, back to your point, Dana, the reason people are seeing different things is in a market that gets like this, it really gets localized. Like you could have one territory that is killing it. I mean, they don't even know what you're talking about. And then you have another market, and usually it's upper end or something like that will typically go first, but those people are dying on the vine because they can't seem to find the motivated. But I think, Tony's right. And for some people, you got two options. When Tony's from the Mike Ferry world, I'm from the build a brand and prospect the ways that you will prospect, right? And so if there's some of them on this call that say, well, I'm never going to pick up the phone and make all these cold calls, I'm just not going to do it. One, the expireds are warm leads. They are a little bit easier. Number two, find a conversation starter that puts the conversation towards real estate. Like, you might be good in my business. Well, what's your business? If you ask every single person you come across, 99.9% aren't going to say, oh, I've been dying to sell real estate. They're going to say, my mother is trying to sell her house, or my sister is buying a house. So you got to figure out what are the things that you will do. Maybe it's teaching. People are wondering what's going on. Maybe you become the local expert in your neighborhood that teaches on Saturdays what to expect from the market that we're in. You want to get people to raise their hand before anybody else sees them. And the way you're going to do that is get in front of those conversations.
Right. Yeah. And I'm talking about expireds because these people are getting a lot of immediate business. But let's face it, the most important conversation you need to have is with your database.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And right now we need to have that conversation with them today. Find out what their plans are for 2024. I saw a response. I think it came from John Maxwell. Most people listen to respond. Few people listen to understand.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think we have to be asking questions, whether you're talking to an expired or talking to your database, asking questions to find out where they are, to find out how you can be a servant to them.
Yeah.
And I think we not make a sale with them, be a servant to them. And if you serve them enough and you have enough business-like conversations, like Linda said, they're going to look at you differently than every other realtor.
Mm-hmm.
And I came out of that Mike Ferry world where we made a lot of calls. But I'm telling you, if you start having business-related calls with your database and other people call them and do like they do, is let me tell you about what we do to sell homes rather than let me show you what we can do to help you accomplish your goals.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to say to you, you're the only realtor that's ever had that kind of conversation with me. And that's because it's a question-based conversation as opposed to a keep talking conversation.
Tony, that's when I had John White on at the end of the year last year, he said that that's what they're doing for their business to their database. I mean, he's literally just calling his client saying, how can I help you with your financial goals in 2024? not saying, hey, this is the life and, cash value life insurance you need to buy, or here's the stock that you need to invest. Like none of that stuff. They're literally just saying, how can we help you with your goals? And he said, all it does is start a conversation. And exactly what you said, he said, I just want to be there to serve them. And then, and when he called Adam and I, and we had that conversation, actually, I think I ended up sending him like 3 other people that needed somebody new that he should reach out to. And it's the same thing with the clients in our databases too, for real estate.
Right. Yeah.
If you hadn't made that call, he wouldn't have, he wouldn't have gotten those 3 clients.
Exactly.
That's exactly right. So I think that's the important part. And I think the other thing that really is another quote I got was, most people overvalue intensity and undervalue consistency.
Yeah.
So true.
I think right now, 2024 and beyond, we have to build consistency.
Yeah.
Because the people that have not flinched from market to market to market are the people that have built consistency in their activities.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Actually, you go ahead, Linda, and then
you just got to know that activity breeds activity.
Right.
In this market, you have to consistently be active, and there is no magic script. None of us are good enough to make a seller sell, a buyer buy, or an agent join. So when you let go of that mentality, and that lets go of what you think you're trying to do to somebody, you understand that you're really there to only discover the people who need you so that you can serve them.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
And the reason you need to be calling all the time and talking to people is, yesterday they weren't moving. Today they're moving.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not there today, or not there enough and touching them enough, then if there's too much gap between connections, a 36 touch is every 10 days. You might want to be every 5 days. If it's going to be a volatile year, then that means we need to be communicating more with our people. Like I just got one from Peter. I just got a program where he's starting to do seller seminars.
Yes, so smart. Yeah.
So, and when did he do it? He's doing it on January 18th. First month. So he's getting people that are ready to move this time of the year. Here's what you can do. Here's how you stage. Here's how you price. Here's what's happening in the market. Here's what you do to get your home ready to sell.
Yeah. I put in the chat, that actually goes with one of the things I put in the chat was a slide from NAR on the pent up sellers that cannot wait any longer over the last 2 years. 7 million new babies were born in the last 2 years. 3 million people got married. 1.5 million people got divorced. 7 million people turned 65 or older. 4 million people passed away. 4 million people had a net brand new job, and 50 million people switched jobs. So when we think that there's like nobody making moves, all those people have to make a move at some point in time. And like, I love you said, Peter's doing the seller seminar. I shared this, and we have an agent in Columbus who she said, I feel like I've been through a divorce, and it was life-changing, and there's so many things that go along with getting a divorce. And so this year I really want to make that a top lead source. And I said, you need to do divorce seminars on Saturdays, hold them at the market center. Sarah, you might remember when Jennifer Williams-Neal did those. 10 years ago, she was holding divorce seminars on Saturdays, and she was selling like hotcakes because people were getting divorced. Unfortunately, there were a lot of divorces. So it's really goes back to the motivated that both of you already said.
Yeah. Well, they say 50% of the marriages end in divorce. So you got a huge market if you just narrow down and focused on that. And then you got a chance of 2 sales if you play it right, because they both are going to do something, buy something different.
Right. Yep. So I think really what we're talking about is disregard what everybody's saying about 24. Figure out how many appointments you need, and figure out how you're going to go get those appointments. And in fact, I talked to one guy and I said, so what are you doing differently in your concepts? And he said, anybody know the word ESOP? Aesop Stables.
Yeah.
That's a-
He did a sales meeting on what is that?
the tortoise. Oh yeah,
And
the
the
tortoise.
hare.
Yeah.
He did a sales meeting on a tortoise and a hare. Who was the fastest?
The
The
tortoise,
hare. Who was consistent?
the tortoise was consistent and the hare was fast.
That's exactly right. And which one won the race? The tortoise won the
Tortoise,
race.
right? You can tell
So
it's been a while
basically,
since
he's
I've
just
read a little.
saying, he said, chase all the new ideas you want. Just be the tortoise.
Yes.
Just
Love
do
that.
what you want to do and do it every day, every day, every day, every day. I talked to Jeff Quinton. He didn't miss any days of lead generation this year. So he's now going on his 24th year of not missing a day of lead generation.
Okay, well that goes to my next question. So, okay, when you guys were selling and thinking about people who are unwavering, meaning that they've gone through up and down in every market, like what were the things that you guys had and you saw in those agents that never wavered, like they've continued through and through?
Finding leads.
Yeah.
Page 43 in MREA says what? You got to have enough leads to what? Got to have enough leads to reach your goal. So no matter what business you're in, whether you're an insurance salesperson or an attorney or whatever, you have to have enough leads to reach your goal.
I would say focus on listings, and they got great at communication. Communication fixes everything with people. And the more you communicate, the better service, the more they refer you. And in this market, you need as many referrals as possible. So focus on listings, get really, really good at great listing presentations, like really master a great listing presentation. And with all the things Tony's just mentioned and we talked about, and focus on being a strong listing agent, because listings will always bring a buyer.
Yep. And I talked to a realtor. They did this last year. They did about just slightly under 1,000 closings. All new people that come to his team have to practice scripts and dialogues for 2 hours a day. They're not on the phones. They're not going listing presentations. For the first quarter, they have to practice 2 hours a day. That's 13 weeks times 5 hours. It's 120 hours. So at the end of 120 hours, they're tested on their skill. And what happens to those people when they start their business on the first day of the next quarter? With 120 hours of scrap practice and improvement, what happens the first day they're on the phones?
They get success. They certainly don't sound new.
They get success. I talked to Harrelson. He's got a new guy on his team. He set 5 listing appointments his first week. But he also had to go through training on those scripts and dialogues and the listing presentation. And he would not be allowed to make calls and or go on a listing presentation until he passed the test. And he set 5 appointments his first month or his first week. Why? Because he had perfected his scripts and dialogues, and Linda, he had perfected his listing presentation.
Mm-hmm.
How many listing presentations did you go on, that you didn't get? Probably very few towards the end of your career.
Yeah.
Well, and you guys, I've been talking to a lot of agents that haven't been using listing presentations the last 2-3 years. They haven't had to. They've been, some of you on here, maybe some of those people, they've been showing up and getting the listing, and they've never had to present or have a listing presentation or, compete with another agent. Yeah. Thank you, Chris, for actually being honest. And that is something that's going to have to change. It always changes anytime we're in more of a shift.
Well, and Tony hit on it, but remember, it's all about questions and about them. So, on the front end, on a scale of 1 to 10 this evening, 10 being, this is a great meeting for you. 1, I totally waste your time. What has to happen in this meeting for you to feel great about it? Because number 1, you got to figure out what they expect. Some people will say, well, I want to get my house on the market and I need you to help me figure out the price. Good. I know I got the listing, right? Some will say, well, I just want to know why I should choose you. That's great. We hate that question, but you want it now because then you say, well, actually, one of 3 things are going to happen here this evening. Number 1, you're going to see the benefits of listing your home with the McKissack Group, and that would be great. Number 2, you might not see the benefits of listing your home with the McKissack Group, and that wouldn't be so great. Or 3, you might have a need or an expectation in the sale of your home that I don't feel like I can meet or exceed. And would you agree that that's one of 3 things that could happen this evening? Because number 1, you want them to understand you get to choose them too. Right? That's different than anybody going in and groveling for the listing. But once I get the precedent set in that listing presentation, then I can get them to prioritize what's most important to you. Because we automatically go in and think it's always price. You'd be surprised how many times it's time. They don't want to give up. I mean, they'll give up money to get it done quicker. So you got to figure all that out also. And if you just go in with that beginning basis of, okay, this is how I'm going to do my presentation each time, then you're going to have the information you need to now go forward and do your presentation.
Yep.
Love that.
Yeah, I just read in the Ultimate Sales Machine, the updated version is we have to be educators, not salespeople.
Yeah.
We have to use statistics like you just did, Dana.
Yeah.
To say there aren't buyers and sellers. Well, you just gave us about 3 million leads.
Yeah.
And you know what? Those 3 million leads aren't enough to find enough buyers because we ended the year, give or take 4 million. So there's room in real estate for tens of millions of leads because I've seen anywhere between 4 and 4.5 million sales next year. Which is what? 4 million sales is what? 8 million sides.
Yeah.
Now it goes back to, I think I've heard this statement before, get your unfair share of the 4 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all it boils down to. Have a plan to get enough appointments to do your unfair share. And there's no reason you can't have a plan to double your business over last year.
Yeah.
Just get enough appointments to double your business. That's all.
When we hear people say that most of the time agents don't have a lead problem, they have a follow-up problem. Will you guys speak about that a little bit? Any thoughts you have around that, and or do you agree, disagree?
Well, they say 80% is follow up. 80% is whether somebody follows up or not. Pay attention to your own self. When I go somewhere to look at something, we're shocked at the people that don't follow up with us to see if we want to buy. It's just shocking.
Yeah.
And we're buyers. Most of the time in those situations, we're buyers. So I think we either get busy or we don't have a system, or we somehow feel like because we didn't get it the first time that we should feel bad. You just need to add it as part of your system. Follow up is, 80% of whether you're going to succeed or not.
Yeah. The internet has changed that. In the old days, it was probably, you could get 40% of your appointments on the first call.
Yeah.
Today, it's probably 10% or less because people are looking so far out.
Yeah.
So I just read a new statistic that most people do a transaction on the 9th contact, not the 7th anymore. It's now the 9th.
Wow. I haven't heard that.
Yeah. Well, what did they teach in Bold? The original Bold was 7 contacts, at least 7 contacts.
Right.
I coached a guy in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and he took 100, almost 200 listings and expireds every year, FSBOs and expireds every year. And his game was, he called it last person standing.
Mm-hmm.
He just followed up until they didn't list, till they listed with somebody else or they listed with him. And that means all those people that Linda said don't follow up, he said usually after 5 calls, he's the only one left.
Yeah.
Now it's a matter of just getting an appointment with that person.
Yeah.
So
Um,
the world of today is nurture.
Mm-hmm.
And the world of today says 36 nurtures is not enough anymore.
mm-mm.
Because why? Because of the competition. The competition for their brain. I mean, there's so much information being passed out every day. If you believe that information doubles every day, we got to stay in touch with them because they remember us for 30 seconds. And then the next
Right.
piece of information, it may not even be real estate. And
Yeah.
I think that Disney book said that we're really in competition with everybody. We're in
Mhm.
competition with everybody. So we've got to follow up and keep reminding them what we do to get what we do to help them get to their goals.
Yeah.
And if once they tell you what their timetable is, it's the follow-up call is real simple. If they say we're gonna do something in April, you just call them every week and ask them what question. Are you still planning on doing something in April? Yes, we are. Great. Call them the next week. Are you still planning on doing something in April? Or you want to make it any earlier or later? April's still good. Call them the next week. Are you still planning to do something in April? Now we want to move it up to March. If you would have waited to April to call them back, what would you have been?
Too
Yeah.
late.
Too late.
Yeah, that's such a good reminder, Tony. And I think everyone on here needs to ask themselves, have they and or would they be calling that many times with that question? Are you still planning on moving in April because that are doing something in April? Because most people, exactly like you just said, would have waited until the end of March to call.
Yeah, we were always taught to cut it in half. Now I think you got to be there all the time. There's just too many people looking for space on their brain.
And you could
So-
always call and, add value and say, by the way, while I have you on the phone, I show that you're looking to do something in April. Is anything about that changed? I mean, you could call with some value.
Right.
Hey, I know I just want to let you know the interest rates changed this week. They're now this. Now I show that you're interested in doing something in April. Is anything about that date changed? I mean, you could add some, more to it in a conversation or add value for those of you that, want to add some kind of value each time you call.
I think, have we gone too long for you?
No, we still have, actually, I was going to have 5 more minutes and then you guys, I was going to do the last 10 minutes for questions. So if you guys have questions, get them ready and type them in the chat. If not, we'll finish early, but I'm hoping since we have 2 super smart brains, you guys will have a couple of questions. But I have one or Tony, were you going to share something?
No, go ahead.
Okay. When we look at top agents right now and their touch plans, and I know a lot of you guys talk to a lot of people who are top agents. Tony, you said obviously we know 36 doesn't cut it anymore. What are you guys hearing are the touches, like are the top number of touches that people are doing now? Like I'm hearing well into 200s a year.
Yeah, I've heard the biggest number I've heard out of the Gary group was somebody said they were doing 200 contacts. I'm hearing probably 60 to 100.
Annual touches, yeah. And I'd say that's about right. Linda, have you heard any different?
I haven't heard any different, but I think also it depends on, who you're calling, how warm that lead is and those kinds of things. But I think the colder the lead is, obviously you're going to have to make more calls to do it. But with touches and things like that, I think Tony's right. I think we're so used to very quick information and it's so quick and we're next to the next email that came through or the next Instagram or whatever, that we're going to have to really maybe diversify the way we touch, but touch a lot more.
Yeah. Okay. Last question I have, then we'll open it up. Think about when you all were both still selling. How did you kind of push through to keep going when like that next tougher market came? Because I'm just hearing a lot of people who are saying, do I want to keep doing this? And so I'm wanting you guys to kind of speak from personally on that.
First of all, if that person said to me, I'm thinking about getting out of business, I'd buy their business. That's the first thing I'd offer them is I'll help you get out. In fact, I'll give you the opportunity to retire. I'll buy your business.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's interesting. The guy that bought my business, that was before Gary wrote the book. That was the dumbest thing I ever did was sell my business. I thought it was a big deal. I sold the business in 1999 for $300,000.
Yeah.
I probably could have made 100,000 a year for the last 23 years. So that's about 2.3 million. So what was better, 300,000 or 2.3 million? But anyway, I just think if you build consistency and build your database big enough, nothing will falter that would give you the anxiety to get out of the business. Nobody I'm talking to that has been consistently lead generating for years and years and years and years, database or farm or whatever they're doing, they're not talking about anxiety. They're talking about, how do I have our biggest year? How do we gain market share? How do we dominate markets? They're not saying, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. They're going, this is a perfect time. How do I get more market share?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think people who are asking that question, they're listening to what has to be done, because here's the thing. It's not rocket science. Honestly, real estate success is really simple, but not easy, right? So I think what happens, because I remember exactly feeling this way when I would hire a freaking coach to make my whole team cold call. I'd cold call. I hated my life. I didn't want it. So instead of quitting, I said, what other ways can you do this? And my aha was, Disney doesn't build Disney by cold calling. IBM isn't building IBM by cold calling. There's got to be a different way. There's got to be a way that will give me energy, that I will have fun and I will enjoy. And so what I would say to that person is, and a perfect example is we taught wealth building in Kalispell while we were up here in Montana. And the girl comes up to me and she said, I'm relatively new in the business. My mentor wants me to do video. I absolutely hate video. I said, okay, I get that, because when press tried to make me do video, I hated it right in the beginning. But what you got to do is ask yourself, what could I change so that I would enjoy it? And I said, for me, I like to have a co-host, or I like to do interview style. I said, what about if you change the way you look at this and you thought, I'm going to go to Whitefish. This is the resort community that she's in. And I'm going to interview all the business people, and I'm going to turn my focus away from me and onto them. How do I serve them? They always say when you're like down in the dumps, the best thing you can do is go serve someone else. So I said, what if you went to every local small business in Whitefish and said, I'd love to do an interview with you on video. Now it's all off of you and it's all onto them. So I think because number one, there is no better industry in the world. What are your options? I know when I would ever have this thought, which I think I had at least once, I'd go get my resume out and I saw that I made minimum wage before I did real estate. And I thought, oh, hell no, I ain't doing that. that sounds awful. My budget's way bigger than minimum wage these days. So that was
your hourly expense is bigger than minimum wage.
So I think when you say, well, what are your options? I mean, literally, if you they're going to give you a job description. If you go get a job and you follow the job description, why don't you just follow this job description? And why don't you just sit down with somebody that can help you see things differently? Because I would want to know, why are you wanting to quit? Is it because every way you hear to do the business, you don't like it, or you don't know how? I mean, what would cause you to do that? Because there is no better industry out there. Unless you did something amazing before you got into real estate, that you miss and you love and you can't wait to go back to. But I don't think anybody's got into real estate because they loved what they used to do.
Yeah.
So I think I would try to figure out, okay, there's more than one way to do this. And I don't care, how you get it done. You just got to get it done. That's what Press said to Anna when she became runner-up rookie of the year. She would not do the prospecting. He said, Anna, that's fine. You don't have to do the prospecting, but somebody does. So they hired an ISA. So I would just say, can you maybe figure out what it is that makes you want to quit, and figure out, because this is not a complicated business. This is a very simple business. It's just not easy. And especially not easy if you think there's only one way.
Yeah. And that's the part is, there's a million ways of doing real estate. I had a client when I was coaching. He did that with all the businesses. He was a resort market, very similar to Whitefish. He did that with all the businesses. And you know how he selected the businesses? Based on the size of their database.
Yeah.
His first interview was with a restaurant who was in that market for 123 years that
Wow.
had over 100,000 followers. And he said, I'll do an interview with you and send you to all my clients if you send me to all your clients. So he does one video, and actually it's a restaurant, and he had them make their specialty, and he sent it to everybody. But they also sent it to over 100,000 people that he got introduced to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so every month he did a business, and it turned out to be one of his best sources, and he loved doing it. Just like, you know, if the guy in Phoenix that has the farm, Kenny Klaus.
Oh, yeah.
Kenny was a FedEx driver, so he had a route. All he did was take the FedEx route. Instead of making it 100,000 a year, he makes millions a year by doing the same job, just doing it differently. And all he did was start introducing himself to everybody in his farm.
Mhm.
And he just did it by zip code, because that's the way he set up his FedEx route, or UPS, I can't remember, whatever, too. But anyway, find a way that you enjoy it. How did Linda enjoy the business? She hired Brad. And so do you have to go on any more appointments, didn't have to do any prospecting, didn't have to work with a buyer, didn't have to work with a seller, and enjoyed it for 16 years. He did all the work, and they collected part of the money.
Yep.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Call the 7th level business.
Yeah.
And guess what? That business is still in existence 20 some years later. How many years, Linda?
Oh, he ran it for
Wow.
me for 20. He ran it for me for 20, and it's probably been another 8 or so at least.
So the business is 28 years old. The Harkers, they kept their business going. The business is now almost 60 years old, and it's feeding generations.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool. Okay, 2 quick questions, and actually one of them I'm going to answer in the chat before. Karen said 100 touches. Does this include social media? It would be tough to have the time to do 100 touches per year for each individual client. Trying to find creative ways to increase my touches. Karen, I'm going to share with you, you guys in the chat. We've had Brittany McAllister on many times, but she's amazing, but she does 175 touches, and her system is like one of the best I have ever seen. And she's in a small town doing a lot of business. But yes, when you get to that many touches, your biweekly emails, your social media, it's impossible when you don't have the systems, but with the system, you can easily do 100 touches a year.
I would also say, Dana, to do group, anything one-on-one is super expensive of your time. It's
Right.
like the most expensive thing you could do with your time, but you can always put 50 people in a room and have, 100 eyeballs looking at you instead of, 2.
Right, yeah,
And
and the
reach out.
touches, yeah. And the thing of it is, the more the touches, the more you have to use technology.
Right.
Like the biggest database I've heard is over 300,000. Well, how do you touch 300,000 people? Well, you put enough links in there into each email that they click, and what have they done? Every time they click, they do what?
Touch.
I'm a nurture.
Yep.
I'm a nurture. So now I'm just following up on all the out of 300,000 people. I only might get 300 nurtures, but I just that email just picked me up 300 nurtures.
Yeah.
How do you build a database of 300,000 people? You communicate with a lot of people who raise their hand over the years. So when
Yep.
Brad took over Jimmy and Linda's business, they had built such a database that the transition was easy because they were already trained to use Jimmy and Linda. Now they use Brad because the service was so great. They don't care who provided the service as long as the service remained great. Agree or disagree, Linda?
Yep, absolutely. Even though I thought it was going to be totally different, they were all going to crumble when I left. They didn't.
They didn't crumble, did they?
No.
Because remember, didn't Gary ask you, do you want to do the business or do you not want to do, or do you want to let Brad do it or something?
That was the key question. Do you want that job or do you want Brad to have it? And I was like, oh crap, I definitely want Brad to have it at this point in my life.
Okay, last question we're going to go out on. Sarah wants to know, she said, you said, I think maybe Tony, somebody said this, most people overvalue intensity and undervalue consistency. What would be your all's advice for building consistency and pulling through on the hard days, she said?
I'll give you an example. I coached a gentleman that lead generated almost every day, maybe possibly every day. So, and when he did lead generate, he was supposed to start at 9 o'clock. He never started at 9 o'clock. I'm saying if you can consistently be late, then you should be able to be consistently on time. So we set it up that he started every day at 9 o'clock, and he was a single agent at the time. And it cost him $200 a minute to be late.
Wow.
And he said, I'll do 50. And I said, could you write a check to do, for, if you were 10 minutes late, could you write a check for $500? They said, yeah. Well, then I want you to have a number. Like Jeff Quinton wanted to be at the gym at 5:30. He had to text me when he hit the door. For him, it was $25,000 a minute to be late.
Woo.
I don't care what the number is, but it's got to be a number that you do not want to write that check or pay that consequence. Anyway, Gene started every day at 9 o'clock. He had to text me at 9 o'clock a.m. $200 a minute. You're never late. So he did that for 5 days, and then he did it for 10 days, and then he did it for 15 days, and he did it for 20. And that year, the year he started, he did 435,000 in GCI. The next year, with just being consistent at starting at 9 o'clock, he went to 850.
Doubled just from being consistent.
So the next year he was consistent and now had a team, and everybody started at 9 o'clock. He went to 1.6.
Wow.
2 years later, he was at 5.
Wow.
Now everybody started at 9 o'clock, and they do it every day. I talked to the guy that he does thousands of closings a year. And for 23 years, his team has not missed a day of lead generation. Started by himself, then a small team, then a little bigger team, and a little bigger team. So just find one thing you want to do consistently that will help you find appointments.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here's the thing. I don't care if you start consistently for 10 minutes. Start at 9 o'clock and quit at 9:15. Just do it for, if it's a challenge, do it for 15 minutes. But what if you make one call?
Mm-hmm.
That one call could be, I can't think, you just told me is for that your financial planner.
Oh, John White.
John White. That one call could have been you.
Yeah.
Mike Ferry had a lady that made one contact a day. Now she was in La Jolla, but she just by one contact a day, every day for 250 days, she went and added probably $1 million a year to her business by just one contact for her and one contact for her daughter a day, and every day. So even if you just make one contact a day every day, would your business be better?
Yeah, it's like our focus this year, do less, more.
So don't overburden yourself with a goal that, well, I'm going to do 3 hours a day. Well, if you've never done 3 hours a day, you're not doing 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
Just start at 9 o'clock and do 30 minutes.
Yeah, read Atomic Habits, because it will tell you to just start at the smallest amount that takes no willpower to do it. And then when you're procrastinating on anything, ask, am I missing a who or am I missing a system? Because one of them is missing when you're procrastinating, because none of us are real people that don't want to accomplish what we say we want to accomplish. So who's the who that can help me get it done, or what's the system that I need to put in place? Because if I was going to do it, I would have already.
Yeah, love it. Well, we're 1 minute over. I have 2 whole front and back of my pieces of paper. So thank you guys. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Tony, so much for all of
Have
tomorrow.
fun.
Great. Have a great 2024, everyone.
Yep,
Thank
same
you for
here.
Go
being
make it a
on.
great 2024.
Make it a great 2024.
Make it a
That's
great-
right. Thank you all. Have a blessed day. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.